Explain how the sell your soul process works, and then you can apply it to the people you see who are famous to decide whose soul has been sold and who still owns their integrity and sovereignty.
I'm pretty sure you've all heard of the term selling your soul. Well, there are two ways that one can go about doing this. One is through an actual spiritual way, whereby you involve yourself within rituals, which this video is not about. The second is through a more metaphorical way, whereby you are deemed as a sellout, whereby you trade your compliance and silence in return for money. Now, in a video that has recently gone viral, Andrew Tate has spoken about what his perception and in his own personal experience, what selling your soul is like in the modern day. Now, watch this video and let me know what you guys think of it. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because it will make you realize something that I realized many years ago, and it's that you can never rely and idolize on anyone you see essentially in the public domain. The reason being, you will understand entirely by the end of this video. And the reason why this benefits you is because you will no longer be let down when your favorite athlete, influencer, musician, whatever it is, actor, doesn't speak out on a situation that you feel passionately about. Usually things that involve justice, humanity and war, such as the current conflict going on in the Middle East right now. And you wonder, why don't they speak out? That's what you'll also learn. You'll understand the reason why they don't speak out. They have traded their opinions and their beliefs in return for monetary gain and to essentially be under the protection and guidance of the powers that be. And one thing you need to understand here clearly, disregard your opinion of Andrew Tate and whether you believe he is guilty or not, because ultimately what is a fact is he was the most Googled man on the internet at one point. His influence was and still is monumental. He was the ideal candidate for somebody to be used by the corporate machines to push agendas and influence. So if you believe that he was not approached by these entities, then you're probably still extremely naive to how the whole world and the system runs. But anyway, that's enough of me talking. Watch this video and let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Explain how the sell your soul process works, and then you can apply it to the people you see who are famous to decide whose soul has been sold and who still owns their integrity and sovereignty. So basically, it's very difficult to become rich and famous in the world today without being gatekept. If you're on a sports team, you're gatekept by your sports team. If you say something you're not supposed to say, you're off the team. If you're in Hollywood and you say something you're not supposed to say, you're not in movies anymore. If you're on YouTube and you say something you're not supposed to say, they kick you off of YouTube. So you have these gatekeepers, and these gatekeepers basically offer you fame in return for not having certain opinions on certain subjects or not mentioning certain subjects at all. You're allowed to be a clown, you're allowed to scream, you're allowed to be a child, you're allowed to get kids interested in garbage, you're allowed to be an idiot, but you're not allowed to talk about anything important on these platforms. And if these things are asked of you, you have to have official opinions. If not, you lose your access to these platforms, because most of you at home don't realize that most influencers don't actually have the ability to make money without these platforms. I'm a businessman with influence. I'm not an influencer with a business. Therefore, I can be canceled and I'm still financially free. The average person who needs their YouTube, without their YouTube, nobody gives a shit about them. When Don Lemon was taken off CNN, nobody gives a shit about him. If a big YouTuber gets canceled, nobody gives a shit about them. If you lose your gaming contract with Kick or Twitch or whoever, nobody gives a shit about you. You don't have actual influence. And this has been proven endless times. So it's very difficult for these people to lose these platforms, because now they need to get a fucking job, which we all know they're not going to do. So they sell their soul in return for money, and the only reason they're famous is because they're propagated and pushed to the front by these platforms in the first place. Because standalone, they don't have any genuine pull or influence because they're not that interesting. So primarily, most people are gatekept, and they know that if they lose that contract, they're toast financially, and they're also toast for their fame, so they shut up. If you are well known without being gatekept, and there are a few people who have done it, who've become monumentally famous and well known without having a gatekeeper of any kind, without having a sports team or a manager or a producer or a platform or one of these things that promotes their fame. What happens is they come along and try and put you under a gatekeeper. So they'll come along and they offer you money initially. They say, listen, we're going to pay you $55 million. You're going to be more famous than ever before. You're going to get more views than ever before. Plus, we'll give you this guaranteed amount of money. But to make sure we don't rock the boat, you have to have official opinions on XYZ or not mention XYZ. And these things are basically the same things you see in the ESG scores. You're not allowed to talk about Israel, you're not allowed to talk about LGBT, you're not allowed to talk about the vaccine, you're not allowed to talk about trans, you're not allowed to talk about these certain things because they don't want to upset anyone. But basically what they're trying to do is neuter you. You sell your soul and you shut up and you don't mention certain subjects. If you say no to the money, which bothers them a lot, because most influencers can't make money without these platforms. So when you say, I don't need your money, they're very, very confused as to why you don't want $50-60 million. Once you say no to the money, it becomes a protection racket. So the mafia used to walk into stores and say, people are going to break your windows, but if you pay us, we'll stop them from breaking your windows. And if you don't pay the mafia, they then break your windows themselves. It's exactly the same. They come to you and say, we have the leading PR firms in the world, and we have the leading legal teams in the world. So let's imagine something happened to you, Andrew. Let's imagine you got in legal trouble. We have the best lawyers. Let's imagine something happened to you and the media started saying you're a bad person. We have the best PR team. And what they're basically saying is, once you're under our guidance and protection, we sponsor the media. Nobody pays for advertising in the media because it works. It doesn't work. They pay for advertising in the media because it's a big bribe racket. So let's say I was sponsored by a clothing brand, and that clothing brand was giving X amount of millions to the media would not then attack me because they will not attack the poster boy for the clothing brand that pays them. It's a circle, right? So what they sit and say is, we have the best PR teams, the best lawyers. In case anything happens, Andrew, we want to make sure that your reputation isn't damaged. So not only do you get money, but you get public relations and legal protections. You say, no, I don't need these things. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's fine. I can hire my own lawyer and I'll handle my own PR. They then repeat it. They double down. They say, no, you don't understand. We have the best PR teams that are in links with the media, and we have the best lawyers globally. And you sit there and say, I understand what you're saying to me. I understand this is a protection racket. I get it. And they try for about 3 or 4 weeks. They amend the contract a little bit. They don't often offer more money. They try and get through to you that if you don't use that PR team for favor, that PR team will turn on you and attack you in the media. If you do not use that legal team for favor, that legal team will do its best to try and drum up charges against you wherever you manage to lay down your head at night. And it's a big protection racket. Once they understand that you're not afraid of them and you've declined the money, you've declined the PR, you've declined the legal assistance, that's when trouble starts to appear. That's when the mainstream media starts to attack you in perfect synchronicity. I go to sleep and I wake up one morning and every single media outlet in the world, globally, from India to America, has the same story the same day. Bam, saying I'm a misogynist or I'm racist or whatever they want to say. They've been attacking me every single day for 3 years. When I still had Instagram, I went to sleep one day and I woke up and the next day, 450 large LGBT accounts accused me of being homophobic overnight. They accused me of being homophobic overnight and attacked me at once, in sync. And they do this to drum up public opinion because the public are stupid. And if they see enough accounts say something about somebody, they all jump in on it. So it's a very simple protection racket. Most people never become famous without already being part of the racket. If you become famous without being part of the racket, they try and convince you with money. If money doesn't work, they then try and explain to you that they control public relations and they also have huge legal influence in most countries around the world, because anybody who doesn't understand the law understands that it's subjective. And if you're watching this at home, you are guilty of something if they want to find you guilty. And they try and explain to you that you're going to need this protection. You're too famous and you're too well known to be going through life without the kind of friends that can be afforded from a contract like this. If you decline that also and make it clear that your sanity is not for sale, your troubles begin. So it's very interesting because when you look at somebody, if that person happens to be afraid of criticism, if that person doesn't like getting attacked online, if that person can't handle negative articles about them, if that person is weak mentally, as soon as they get hated, they start to break down, be sure they sold their soul, because they've had a conversation with someone who's promised them that they can fix that. And the only place they can't really fix it is on Twitter, because people still have a degree of free will and free speech on Twitter. But in the news and these other places, they'll start to say good things about them. Plus they'll be financially secure so they can sit in their room all day hiding from the world because their bills are paid while they have their little mental breakdowns. Anybody who is afraid of criticism, anybody who is weak mentally, anyone who's scared to be hated, it's actually very simple now in the world. If you look at somebody the media hates, their soul's not sold. If you look at somebody the media loves, their soul is sold. It works that way. And they try and scare you. First, they try and incentivize you with money, but then they try and scare you and make it very clear you're going to get in a lot of trouble and you're going to be very hated if you don't sign on this dotted line. And knowing what you know, you can take this information, you can take these parameters, and you can look at every single person you see who is famous, and you can see who has sold their soul to the devil and who is still a sovereign man.
They use people of influence, such as celebrities and influencers, to promote certain products which are completely detrimental to their audience. Tell me now, why is somebody, who is such a well-paid actor, they have all the money they need, why are they promoting gambling when it's common sense how detrimental, destructive, and literally evil gambling is? Do you think it's just because they want money? For example, Chris Rock now is the face of, I think it's Betfair. He's over all these gambling websites and always on the gambling adverts. Do you think that he needs the money? Because Chris Rock in Madagascar, the royalties alone of that. Do you think he needs the money? No. It's in order to use his influence to push towards others. And the reason he has to do it, because he doesn't have a choice. Believe you that. They want him. He was chosen. They want him because of his influence, right? Because he's trusted. He's the nice guy. They're using the nicest possible guy to promote the most evil thing. Do you not see how this master manipulation works? This is why these people should never be idolized or looked up to. You can respect them for their craft. Fair enough, of course. He's extremely talented, funny, bring a lot of joy to people. But you have to separate that from who they are as a human. Because if he had any decency, there's no way he would promote that evilness. But he signed the deal. What Andrew Tate is talking about. And this is what you need to do. You need to separate from whether you like Andrew Tate or not. Because look at it this way. This guy would have been in the position to be approached by all of these companies, whatever you want to call them, to sign these sorts of deals. He claims he was. And afterwards, you saw what happened to him. Now, what you need to understand is, whether he done it or not is irrelevant. Because when you're in that position of power, he would have been able to sweep that under the rug so easily, if he decided to sign with them. And of course, they would make it go away. Because the amount of money and influence that would be made from bringing Andrew on board, especially the influence, do you think they're going to let some allegation from two women, unknown women, take all that away? No chance. You need to wake up to how the world is really run. When people go down and get prosecuted, it's to save face. If they can't save face, you will be thrown under the bus. There's always an agenda behind it. It's not done for the greater good. Oh, we care now about women. That's why we're going to help this massive star that we have and just take them away. No, it's always to save face. There's this show called The Boys, and yes, it's fictional, but these shows are based off of extensive research and understanding how certain things work. And it's basically essentially showing how the world would be if superheroes were real. And if superheroes were real, how the corporate side of things would essentially run everything. Everything would be based and run by corporate. Now, if you start watching that, because it's entertaining, this is what I'll tell you, go watch that. It's a very good starting point. Instead of going to read the books, listen to in-depth interviews, those things take a lot more concentration and focus. As a starting point, if you go and watch that, you will understand within the first season how evil and manipulative, also strategic and clever the whole thing is. The whole scheme.